Welcome, I'm Catherine Hadro, and this is EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. On the verge of victory, barring court challenges, it looks like the U.S. has a new president. What impact does Joe Biden's apparent move to the White House have for the pro-life movement? We talked to the chairman of the Senate's Pro-Life Caucus. Pause the celebration as we learn of a major advance in the development of a COVID vaccine. We take a moment to ask about the method. What role did fetal cell lines have in the research?
It's a big job, but this is the epicenter, and this is why we're here.
And a victory in the fight for life in one of the most pro-abortion states in America. We travel to Florida to see an inspiring initiative bringing hope in the battle to save the unborn. The resolution of the 2020 presidential election is coming into focus as the last votes around the country are being counted. While court cases are pending, the vote tabulation points to a change of leadership. It appears Joe Biden will head our nation, becoming only the second Catholic president in U.S. history.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify. Who doesn't see red states and blue states, only sees the United States. And work with all my heart, with the confidence of the whole people, to win the confidence of all of you. And for that is what America, I believe, is about.
Biden is a lifelong Catholic who says his faith has defined him and guided him through personal tragedies, yet many challenge his views on the life issue, which have become increasingly pro-abortion over the years and directly contradicts the Catholic Church's teachings on life. Here's a look at what might be on the table after Inauguration Day with a President Biden and a Vice President Kamala Harris. Through executive order, the projected new administration is expected to rescind the Mexico City policy, which currently bans the funding of abortion overseas. A Biden-Harris White House is also expected to fully restore funds to Planned Parenthood, change the Title X family planning program, which currently bans grantees from referring women for abortions, and restore the Affordable Care Act's contraception mandate. With a projected President Biden in the White House, the role of the Senate becomes all the more important in defending life. And while the Senate majority largely hangs on the two Georgia Senate runoff elections this January, Republicans have staved off a blue wave as many pro-life senators won their highly competitive races. Joining us now from Capitol Hill is one of those senators who won a tight re-election race, Senator Steve Daines of Montana, the chair and founder of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus. Senator, welcome back. First, can you address if Democrats had control of all three branches of government, how much more significant does your work as Pro-Life Caucus Senate chair become?
Well, thanks, Catherine. First of all, we're not going to let that happen. It all rests on Georgia. As we wake up today, the current count is 50 to 48. We've got to win the two seats in Georgia. So on January 5th, there'll be a runoff. I'm confident that Senator Perdue and Senator Loeffler will prevail, but they're going to throw everything they can. The anti-abortion forces will be throwing everything they've got to try to defeat these two great pro-life senators. So the message is we've got to defend Georgia. It's all about Georgia. It's coming down to that key runoff, and I just ask everybody listening today to make sure they're tuned in to what's happening in Georgia. We've got to get a good ground game going there in Georgia, get our pro-life voters out, because really, at the end of the day, life is on the ballot in Georgia. We've got to win those two seats.
Senator, you won your Senate race. It was seen as a tight re-election, but I believe you were victorious with 10 percentage points. How much of a role do you think your pro-life leadership played in your win?
Well, I can tell you something, Catherine. As I traveled around the state, as I talked about the contrast between myself, a strong, pro-life, passionate leader, to my opponent, who was one of the most radical pro-abortion governors in the country, I can tell you of all the issues I talked about, The issue that received the most applause, the most standing ovations, is when I talked about being pro-life. No doubt about it, it motivated voters in Montana. We had a great ground game. There were some pro-life organizations on the ground across Montana going door to door on our behalf. I'm so grateful for the support we had from our faith and family communities, our pro-life communities, and I think it was a really important part of our victory.
Senator, the number of pro-life women in the U.S. House has now more than doubled. What's your reaction to that, and does this open up more opportunity for bipartisan efforts to protect life?
Well, I could not be more pleased with what happened in the U.S. House. As you know, we were hearing from the mainstream media that there's going to be this blue wave, that a lot of our great pro-life leaders are going to be swept out of office. Well, the opposite happened. We flipped 9 seats in the House. 7 of those are women. We have the largest class of pro-life women ever in the history of the Republican Party coming to Washington in January. This is great news for the movement. And I think what it shows you is that the movement is thriving, voters are paying attention, and the results speak for themselves. So I'm really excited about the new energy in the House. They nearly flipped the House. They nearly got the gavel out of Nancy Pelosi's hands. Wouldn't that have been wonderful? We got close, but everybody thought we were going to lose a bunch of seats in the House. Instead, we gained them, and guess what? They were pro-life women.
I want to go back to your Senate win. Do you suspect your support for Amy Coney Barrett on the Supreme Court was also a deciding factor? How do you think that played into it?
I do. I was so proud on that Monday the week before the election, when we voted Amy Coney Barrett onto the bench. Then I went down to the White House, that night, just an hour later after casting the vote on the floor of the U.S. Senate. And I had a front row seat to watch President Trump there with Justice Clarence Thomas swear Amy Coney Barrett into the Supreme Court. No doubt about it, it was an important factor in our race. It just motivated our pro-life voters, our conservative voters. They saw how important the United States Senate is in terms of protecting life and protecting the Supreme Court. Just wonderful to have this amazing new justice. I love saying the words Justice Amy Coney Barrett.
Senator, looking ahead, what's your priority moving into 2021 as chair of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus?
Well, first of all, Catherine, we want to make sure that we protect the important wins we have for the pro-life movement. The Hyde, defunding Planned Parenthood, Title X, Mexico City, and also ensuring that we keep these good pro-life judges moving forward here on the bench. So we'll be working with our majorities in the United States Senate, but we're also going to be working to stop any pro-abortion provisions that may come over from Nancy Pelosi in the House. As you know, unfortunately, one of the top priorities of Nancy Pelosi and the House Democrats is the issue of abortion. They want to move forward with pro-abortion measures. We'll do all that we can in the United States Senate to stop those.
Senator Steve Daines, chair of the Senate Pro-Life Caucus, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Prudence Robertson is Communications Associate for the Susan B. Anthony List. She joins me now. Prudence, good to see you. Okay, Joe Biden is the declared president-elect. I know we will be talking about this on the show for many weeks and months to come, but can you speak to what are the Susan B. Anthony List's greatest concerns with this projected Biden-Harris administration?
Absolutely. So we've said this on the show before. Biden and Harris, they comprise the most radical pro-abortion administration that our nation has ever seen. They're prepared to repeal the Hyde Amendment and force American taxpayers to fund abortion, many of them who are pro-life. And they're also poised to eliminate the filibuster and pack the court with radical activist judges that would do their bidding and strip away all of the success that President Trump has made in the judiciary to transform it into a branch that understands and respects the Constitution and respects the rights of states to enact laws that reflect the will of the people in those states, the majority of which are pro-life.
To that point, put this into perspective for us. How much more weight does this place on the 2 Georgia Senate runoff elections in January?
Well, at this point, those 2 races determine the fate of the Senate and of the nation. You know, it's so important to keep the pro-life Senate majority because no pro-life Senate majority equals no check on the radical pro-abortion lobby of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer in the Senate. And that's why Susan B. Anthony List is all in. We're in it to win it. In Georgia, we've sent our our field team down south, and we're going to spend $4 million to reach a universe of about 1 million voters in that state to expose the extremism of Loeffler and Perdue's opponents and ensure that they win, because life truly is on the ballot, like Senator Daines said earlier in Georgia.
Looking at the House side now, pro-lifers are celebrating that pro-life women in the U.S. House has more than doubled. Prudence, what does this indicate to you? And do you think there is potential then for pro-life progress in the House, even though it will remain under Democratic majority?
Well, you know, Catherine, as a young pro-life woman and as a part of the pro-life movement as a whole, it's so encouraging and exciting to see the number of pro-life women in Congress literally double. We're at a count of 16 new pro-life women in the House of Representatives, and there are a couple of races still yet to be called that number could even increase. And just to mention a few of them, Diana Harshbarger, she is a pharmacist. She understands the dangers surrounding chemical abortion. And we have Kat Kamik, who was just elected in Florida. She has a beautiful personal pro-life story. Her mother was urged to abort her at the advice of doctors because of complications in a pregnancy before, but she chose life, and now Kat is a congresswoman. It's so amazing to see. And even Michelle Steele, she's one of the first Korean American women to be elected to Congress, and she's pro-life. So it's so exciting to see all of these women, now given a platform not only to vote on pro-life policies, but to really expose the dangers and the tragedy of abortion and promote alternatives to save babies and their mothers.
It's really exciting. There's still a few more races yet to be called,
That's
so we'll
right.
be watching those closely. Prudence Robertson with the Susan B. Anthony List. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Following a historic election day, we have so far seen numbers for pro-life women in the House of Representatives more than double. Pro-lifers are in strong position to hold a majority in the Senate. A significant pro-life amendment passed in the state of Louisiana, and every pro-life senator who led the charge to confirm Justice Amy Coney Barrett won re-election. But as remaining election results continue to pour in across the U.S., we turn to this week's call to action. Go to prolifeweekly.com and sign our pledge to pray for our nation. At our website, you can sign our special petition for peace and for continued victories for the pro-life movement. Emotions are running high right now, but our Lord is King, and Jesus is the Prince of Peace. We know as Catholics that prayer can make a difference. So as important election results continue to be counted and tracked, let us pray that the results are victories for the pro-life movement. And let us pray that citizens and cities across America maintain peace. Sign our pledge to pray for peace for our nation by going to prolifeweekly.com.
I think that likely, based on impact, that will be the greatest medical advance in the last 100 years. Right now, only in the US, we have 100,000 victims of COVID every day. 1,000 deaths every day.
That is the CEO of Pfizer reacting to news this week that their coronavirus vaccine looks to be 90% effective. The company is now on track to apply for emergency use approval from the Food and Drug Administration later this month. But should Catholics have any cause for concern with this vaccine? Joining me now on Skype is Dr. Joseph Meaney, president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. Welcome back. Joseph, as a bioethics expert, can you clarify, are fetal cell lines involved in this Pfizer vaccine?
So the good news is not at all. It's a new type of vaccine, the mRNA type, similar to the Moderna vaccine that does not use any cell lines whatsoever in its production. So in that case, there are no cell lines involved in its development or production.
Excellent. And can you clarify, is it, in Catholic understanding, morally illicit for fetal cell lines to be used in the testing stage of a vaccine, but not in the production and development? Can you explain that?
Sure. No, anytime one is using cell lines that were derived from an abortion, the scientists are doing something they shouldn't be doing. And so, unfortunately, there is this very, very widespread practice to use like the HEC-293 cells, the human embryonic kidney cells, to do the testing phase. So not in the production or in the development of the vaccine, but just in the testing. And that is still problematic. But it is one step removed, from actually producing the vaccines in these abortion-derived cell lines.
While I have you, what is your reaction to news that Ezekiel Emanuel is on the Biden COVID task force? He has made past comments that he wants to die at the age of 75. Biden himself is almost 78.
Right. Yeah. No, it is very concerning because it's in a whole range of issues. Zeke Emanuel is very much on the extreme liberal end of bioethics. So he has a tendency, I think, to push the envelope, and certainly with regard to COVID, pushing a lot of lockdowns and things like that. I think it's highly problematic if he's going to be given a big role in the next administration.
Excellent. And finally, Dr. Meaney, as we hear this Pfizer vaccine news this week, what's your last word? What do you want Catholics at home to know?
Yeah, so I think Catholics should be reassured, right, that this vaccine is not going to be including any fetal cell lines or anything like that, but they should still be concerned, right, that our institutions are still relying on these abortion-derived cell lines in the testing phase, and that should not be happening at all.
Dr. Joseph Meaney, president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center, always grateful for your clarity and expertise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, the unusual connection between COVID and assisted suicide. I'll speak out about what's happening right now in Britain.
This enables us to be much more active in our outreach, because instead of just telling people like, hey, here's the truth about life, it's, hey, here's the truth about life, and here's a place where we can direct you.
And we take you to a huge college campus that has a new way of spreading the word to students about the sanctity of life. Welcome back to EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. I'm Catherine Hadro. In a sure sign of today's culture of death, the UK Health Secretary says people are allowed to travel overseas for assisted suicide during a coronavirus lockdown. That is this week's Speak Out segment. England's Prime Minister Boris Johnson imposed a second national lockdown last week following an uptick in COVID-related deaths and infections in the country. The 4-week lockdown is meant to save lives. That is, unless, get this, you want to end your own life. UK Health Secretary Matt Hancock said last week that people traveling abroad for assisted suicide would not be breaking strict new coronavirus lockdown rules in England. Assisted suicide means to counsel, abet, or aid someone in killing him or herself. The UK Health Secretary told members of Parliament last week, quote, "The new coronavirus regulations, which come into force today, place restrictions on leaving the home without a reasonable excuse. Traveling abroad for the purpose of assisted suicide is a reasonable excuse, so anyone doing so would not be breaking the law." Mr. Health Secretary, it is in your job description to protect the life and well-being of UK citizens. But you cannot claim to want to protect lives by enforcing this coronavirus lockdown when you're simultaneously advancing assisted suicide, which ends lives. You automatically compromise your ability to do your job and gain the trust of others when you stop protecting the vulnerable members of your population as health secretary. And how irresponsible and short-sighted to condone assisted suicide, the aiding of others to kill themselves, when we know depression and suicide rates are skyrocketing now amidst COVID. When people who are already medically vulnerable are then isolated and are facing the heavy burden that is the global pandemic and economic uncertainty, should that not be the time to offer more hope and resources and help? Instead, you are sending the message that those citizens are better off dead. I pray you'll see that truth and will work to protect every human life in the UK. For this week's Pro-Life Focus, I traveled to my home state of Florida to witness a special event that highlighted the importance of youth in the pro-life movement and going to the heart of where women are most in need. Going away to college is a time for growth, for learning, and for testing, both inside and outside the classroom.
We see, not just on this college campus, but in general, like we see the attitude of individualism and use and the use of pleasure, namely.
Here in Gainesville, Florida, students at the University of Florida give me a glimpse into the campus life today.
The culture's kind of scary on UF campus.
The culture is very tough to live in. It's definitely a culture of surviving and not thriving.
The college town that's home to the UF Gators boasts more than 50,000 students, 60 plus fraternities and sororities, and some other numbers they might not be as proud of.
When you look at the state of Florida itself, where's the highest abortion rate happening? And people would think Miami or Tampa or Orlando. It's not. The number one county in the state of Florida for abortion ratio is Leon County, which is Tallahassee, which is Florida State. The second highest county is Alachua County, which is Gainesville and the University of Florida. So in almost every state, but Florida certainly, you can follow these numbers by university campuses.
Pam Stenzel sees a lot of students as the senior regional clinic coordinator for community pregnancy clinics. The free pregnancy clinic here offering STI testing, abortion pill rescue, among other services, sits right across the street from UF's campus on University Avenue. It's conveniently squeezed in between a Catholic church and a fraternity house. This clinic's location is no coincidence.
We are right in between not just the church and fraternities, but what's referred to as Midtown, which is the go-to place for undergraduate students to lose their faculties. Off campus is where the rowdiest reptiles, as they say at UF, are to be found.
Being a college town stomping ground is what made Gainesville's community pregnancy clinic the perfect place for a pro-life milestone in the Sunshine State.
We are very honored that all of you have come and on this work of mercy.
Bishop Felipe Estevez of St. Augustine travels to the clinic this mid-October morning to bless what is the 100th ultrasound donated by the Knights of Columbus Ultrasound Initiative in the state of Florida. Florida is the first state to reach that 100 landmark.
The machine is enabling the mother to hear, to sense the beat of the heart of the child. And what a difference that makes.
The ultrasound blessing event, originally scheduled for May but delayed due to COVID, became a scaled-down October celebration. While the crowd size had to shrink, its significance did not. Bishop Estevez, blessing the halls with his holy water, followed by Mass, understands why the ultrasound has seen and unseen consequences for this Florida town.
It's a huge university, more than 50,000 students. Imagine the faculty. This is a town, a university town, Gainesville, and to be at the heart of the university is placed where it needs to be placed.
Event guests ranging from students to state senators share and what is some joyful news this 2020 year.
It's incredible, and it shows the work and the dedication and people willing to take time and give their money and talents. And I didn't even know this until recently, that we're third in the nation on abortion. So I think having that in Florida is much needed. And again, it's just it's a medical tool device to show patients, what's going on.
People who come in might not have the answers because they're not aware of their choices and the information hasn't been given to them. And I feel like this is the perfect place to learn that information and kind of be filled with a peace.
Peter Wen, a UF student, is Grand Knight of the Knights of Columbus Council 13900, based here at the University of Florida. It's the council responsible for this new ultrasound.
This is the 100th ultrasound in the state of Florida. So how the process works is the Supreme Council matches the cost of the ultrasound. So if we're able to raise half, then Supreme will raise the other half, and we're able to place the ultrasound at the facility that needs it the most.
His fellow students and council members agree that graduating to a new ultrasound in this clinic across the classroom helps to build a culture of life on campus.
This enables us to be much more active in our outreach, because instead of just telling people like, hey, here's the truth about life, it's, hey, here's the truth about life, and here's a place where we can direct you. Here's resources. Here's something more than just a conversation.
And I think this location is an amazing place because we can point our peers and our fellow students to a place that they are familiar with, even if they don't know it. They walk by this building every day, sometimes multiple times a day, when they most need it, and they just don't know it's here, but we can tell them.
ultrasound technology gives mothers a peek beyond what the eye can see. And this ultrasound will have an impact on students beyond just their college years.
We're dealing with girls here in this clinic who maybe are juniors or seniors who at freshmen didn't get the help they needed, had an abortion, now they find themselves in the situation again. And we get a chance to say, you know what, there's a better way. And as you know, saving a baby is saving generations.
And that is an A+ pro-life initiative. As a Florida State University graduate, it's hard for me to bite my tongue and say something nice about Gainesville. But even I have to confess, the students and clinic staff I met there were incredibly compassionate and caring about the pro-life cause. A big thank you to Community Pregnancy Clinics for inviting me to the ultrasound blessing. It was an honor to be there. That does it for this edition of EWTN Pro-Life Weekly. Until next time, we'd love to hear from you. Find us on social media at EWTN Pro-Life on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we're there. You can also send us a message by emailing prolifeweekly@ewtn.com. We love to hear from you. Remember, life is a gift. Your life is a gift. God bless.